Welcome to Sync Up, a show about OneDrive, the intelligent files app for Microsoft 365. We are your hosts, Ankita Kirti and Jason Moore. I'm Ankita Kirti, Product Manager on the OneDrive team.
And I'm Jason Moore, Group Program Manager for OneDrive. This show will take you behind the scenes of OneDrive, shedding light on how OneDrive connects you to all of your files in Microsoft 365 so you can share and work together from anywhere while protecting your work from accidental loss and malicious attacks.
Today, we are really excited to have Sanjoyan and Mustafi on the show to talk more about data security in OneDrive.
Don't go away. We've got a great show for you today.
Last week, we spoke about how imperative it is to have your data in OneDrive so that you can not only stay connected to all your files wherever you are, specifically in these remote working scenarios, but also you can easily share and collaborate whenever you want. And to be productive, you might need to work with folks who are outside your organizations as well, which will need you to be able to share externally. And we do understand that it can be daunting and you can be scared to lose your confidential data, which is why we have made sure that OneDrive is a secure, private, and compliant platform. And today we are going to talk about just that, data security with OneDrive. And while planning this episode, we realized that there's a lot to cover. So we will be dividing the topics across 2 episodes. Today, we will discuss end user and admin level data security. And next month, we will talk about governance and compliance. With that, Jason, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Absolutely. Our guest today is Sanjoyan Mustafi. Sanjoyan works on security and compliance in the OneDrive and SharePoint team, and he's been on our team since 2017, deep in nothing but that. So we're excited to have you on to talk about this, Sanjoyan.
Thanks, Jason. Yes, and what we call this space is peace of mind, because security leads to peace of mind. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that.
That is so good. Before we go on to talk about the deep security compliance features that you work on, Sanjoyan, I would also like our listeners to know a little bit more about end user secure sharing. And we've discussed about this in our previous episodes. But right now, and both of you are power users for OneDrive. So right now, when you are working remotely, what are the few features of OneDrive that have stood out and you've realized that it's helped you to share and collaborate more securely? Jason, would you like to go first?
Sure, absolutely. I think, the first thing I'd like, whenever you talk about the end user features, I ground it in some of the model we have. And that's this ability to create sharing links to files in OneDrive and SharePoint. What's really powerful about that is because you can have different links to the same file, you can give different people access in different ways. So a lot of the things that Sanjoyan and I might enumerate here, you can actually share the same file with different people and set different requirements on that. So I might have a document, for example, that I create a sharing link and I share with you, Ankita, that I've given you full read-write access and you can do whatever you want. But I can create a separate link that I might send to someone external and have different controls and capabilities on it. And I think that's actually a really powerful tool for end users. And we know when we hear from them, it's both the simplicity of being able to just create a link to something paired with the confidence that I'm never over-permissioning or giving someone too much just because I'm sharing with other people as well.
Absolutely.
Jason, that's a great feature. And I would also like to point out on the specific people sharing link. And it is the most secure way to share with people externally, because firstly, when you share using specific people link, it cannot be forwarded to anyone else. And we have built in an automated OTP system along with this link. So so the person who receives the link is the only one who can access the link, and we would verify that with an automated time-limited verification code sent to the same email to which the link was shared. So I feel that's an amazing way to share with folks outside your organization, and it really makes you feel at peace that your data cannot be leaked.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great example.
Sanjoyan, what about you?
Thanks, Ankita. On top of sharing links, what we can do is set expiration on the sharing links. That way we can prevent our receivers of the sharing link to have access to the document for a longer period of time.
Awesome. Well, and with that, you can also block downloads, right?
Yes, definitely. So this is a new feature that we have where we add the capability when we give the sharing link out, we ensure that the link opens in browser and there is no download. But you are productive and you can make changes to the document in the browser, make updates, but you should not be able to download in any device that you're using. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Another one that I really love on using on that is the ability to set a custom password. And I find this is actually really powerful, especially when I'm sharing externally. So I might be talking with like a vendor or another company, and I want to share and let them kind of reshare with the couple of people they need maybe on their side, but I don't want them to go broadly or for that link to just leak. And so when I share it, I can set a custom password, and then maybe on the phone or over Teams or email, I could give them the password that would let the link work. And so that lets us have just a little more kind of confidence when I'm sharing that link that it's going to be accessed by the right folks.
Yeah. And also for end users, I mean, we always talk about how admins have control over the data, but even end users have complete control over their data and who's accessing and who's not. And like you mentioned, Jason, that you would want the link to be not overshared. If it has been overshared, you can revoke just that link to protect the document while ensuring that others are still being able to collaborate effectively. So I really like the fact that if I do go into the manage access UI, I can easily add or remove individuals on the shared links or stop sharing entirely, grant access, and have full control over who has access to my shared content. So all of that is amazing, and we have these effective end user capabilities for external sharing. Sanjoyan, I would like you to tell us more about the restrictions that an admin can implement to manage this external sharing.
Excellent. So now from an admin standpoint, we can do a couple of things. One is we can set a default for the sharing links. As admin, we can say, hey, you will not be able to share content out anonymously. That is not what my organization would want to do when you share documents out from your OneDrive. So you can set different defaults as admins, and then what more you can do is you can have additional restrictions in terms of domain filtering. How it works is you can say, as my end users, they can share all the documents that they have in OneDrive with contoso.com and no one else. Okay, so that way you can ensure that the documents are not leaking out to somebody else. We can do opposite. We can say, so maybe you have a competition out there with some other company and you don't want those documents to land in the hands of your competitor. You can say you can share the documents with everyone except contoso.com. So we can do both inclusion and exclusion using domain filtering very easily, and admins can set that, and end users cannot bypass that. At sharing time, you will be prevented accordingly.
That's awesome. That's super powerful.
Yeah, it's absolutely powerful. Our enterprises love it. The other thing which we have is B2B sync and share. In this case, if your company, large organization collaborating with another company in a B2B way, we can establish a trust relationship between the two organizations, and then we ensure that the sharing only happens between organization A and B. So we can sync the user between both the Active Directory in Azure and then ensure that the sharing happens between these two. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
So that feature is pretty cool and pretty powerful, specifically if we are in a scenario where we are regularly working with vendors and partners from another organization. And for our listeners, if default link sharing, domain filtering, B2B sync are features that you're listening for the first time, please go and read our blog that we have released yesterday on data security with OneDrive. It talks about all of these wonderful features and links you to more of our documentation related to these features.
So all of that makes a ton of sense to me, and there's obviously real controls there that help admins be set up in the right way. So from the get-go with sharing, end users are doing the right thing. But are there policies, and I know there's some that really help me set kind of protecting against leaking sensitive data, so that I can know wherever those files go or however they get accessed and the controls on them, I can be confident that the right things are happening with those files?
Absolutely. That's a very good question, Jason. The scenarios are like this, that I'm an end user. I don't know about all security policies that are there in the company. I know my work and I'm generating content. I am saving it in OneDrive. I expect the service to take care when I upload a sensitive content and lead me in the right direction. Okay. And then admins should be able to set those policies, the right policies in place, which can detect automatically if users are dealing with sensitive contents and take actions accordingly. The first one, which I would like to talk about, is DLP, data loss prevention. As admins, we can set these policies in Office 365 DLP and choose different variations. For example, you can say, if I detect more than 5 credit card numbers or SSN numbers in a document, then something is going on and I don't want my end user to share the document externally. Okay, prevent external sharing just for that document. Okay, so that way it is non-intrusive. End user probably in a legitimate way is generating content, document, and saving it in their OneDrive, but by mistake may share it to an external users. Within minutes, the DLP will kick in. The policy will find and match contents against my setup, which is find whether there are more than 5 credit card or SN numbers, and automatically turn off my external sharing just for that document. So that gives a pretty granular control for an admin to detect the content which is sensitive and then prevent the users from taking further actions. And actually they put alert, so you will know when you go to your OneDrive, you can see an icon and say, the system has detected sensitive content, and it will prompt you any action that you need to take.
And this DLP policy is across all Office 365 workloads, right? Like I can have the same policies for Teams and Exchange and OneDrive and SharePoint, wherever my data goes.
Absolutely. Thanks for mentioning that, Ankita. So if you are attaching a document from OneDrive and it's traveling in Exchange, in email, DLP can detect that in flight, okay, and then prevent from sending that email out. And then in Teams, in SharePoint sites, and in OneDrive, everywhere. Yes.
That is so cool. But what is even cooler is the feature that you guys released a few days back, and I would want you to talk about that too.
Oh, yes, please. Sensitivity labels.
Yes, I'm slightly excited because this is close to my heart, and we released just last week sensitivity labels. So what is sensitivity labels? Sensitivity label provides a way for you to apply a classification to a document depending on how sensitive is the document, and then in turn it can apply certain policies to that document. Example, you can do content marking, which is headers, footers, or watermarking. You can also do encryption. So as an admin, we can define different layers of encryption. Let's say for all employees in my organization. So that's a layer of encryption. I can even narrow it down to say only finance department or only HR department, employees in HR department. So as an end user, when I see those labels, or sensitivity labels, I can then apply them to a document depending on my business scenario, what the document means. The peace of mind part is when this document accidentally or by intent goes to somebody else who is not part of that encryption, then they cannot open the document. So I probably see a document from my phone or a device which may have been compromised, and I unintentionally send the document to someone else. They will not be able to open the document because the document is encrypted, and only those people who are part of the encryption can open the document. What's even more cool is you can ensure that for a given document, it will have a label which is default. You can choose a default for your organization, and you can also force a user to pick a label. So you can say, labeling is mandatory, and then they cannot save a document without not choosing a label. So they have to choose a label. So this gives you a pretty good control and it's very important for sensitive documents.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the ability to have that be described in terms of both the control on the kinds of things you want to do with those labels, but also the requirements you can place on when they need to be applied, so that you can have confidence as how they go out and how your users are actually taking advantage of them.
One quick thing which I totally forgot to mention is an automatic labeling. So I'd like to introduce the concept of automatic labeling. At 2 levels, we do detection. One is when you are actually authoring the document. So when you're authoring the document, let's say you are copy pasting items or you're typing something, we check at runtime, and then if we find some content which is against your organizational policies, then we will apply the label for you, or at least prompt you that, hey, we detected some content which is against the organization policies, so you should label the document now as highly confidential, for example, or something like that. So that gives you a real good idea, or actually gives you, from an admin standpoint, a peace of mind, because as soon as it detects while authoring the document, it will protect the document at that. And the second part is automatic labeling on data at rest. So imagine as an admin, you are worried that, hey, I have hundreds and thousands of files in all these OneDrives and SharePoint sites sitting there. What about those files? If they have sensitive contents, how can I ensure that those contents are also labeled, classified, and encrypted? So using, again, the very new feature that Jason was talking about, you can now set rules and then let the rules run across all the OneDrives and SharePoint sites, and that will detect contents based on the matching criteria and then apply the sensitivity labels with encryption on it.
That's awesome.
I really feel that something that would resonate with our listeners is the ability that you mentioned, Sanjoyan, about adding automatic sensitivity labels, or even the content marking that sensitivity labels can help us do, and like put a watermark or a header or a footer that we had discussed. That's all great. And I really liked the encryption part that you mentioned, because that is a great segue into my next question. As you mentioned, that encryption that sensitivity labels brings to the document, it can kind of help secure access to content. And right now, all of us are working remotely, and we spoke about it in our last episode as to how we can be productive with OneDrive while working remotely. But I'm pretty sure admins are also wondering how they can guarantee their users can access the organizational data securely, even in these scenarios. So apart from enforcing encryption via sensitivity labels, what are the other policies that admins can set for their organization and for their peace of mind?
That's a very good question again, Ankita. And then this question is becoming more and more important in recent times, because we are working remotely, we are working away from our offices, from home, using networks which are not trusted, using devices, probably our personal devices, and accessing corporate data. Some of them are confidential in nature. So how and what are the controls that are available today to provide protection? So I'll talk through a couple of them. The first thing is conditional access policy, which we, SharePoint and OneDrive, has done collaboration with Azure Active Directory and provide a tight integration with conditional access policy. It provides a couple of very high-level features. One is the trusted IP address. So as admin, what we can do is we can specify the IP address ranges that you trust, and then you say that these IP address ranges are not within my trust boundary. And in SharePoint and OneDrive, you can define granular controls. You can say, if a user is trying to access a document from a non-trusted IP address, I'll prevent that access. Or you can say that, oh, I want him to access the document, but I do not want him to open or download the document or print the document or sync the document. I just want him to open the document in browser and make changes to the document, but you should not be able to download the document. So this feature, we are getting a lot of requests and a lot of usage for this feature, used heavily by large enterprises, which we call as the trusted IP address. The next one is the trusted device policy. So again, we all use in some form or fashion devices that are provided by our organization. But since we're working from home, in many cases, we want to be productive. We use our personal devices, personal phones to access, again, sign in and access corporate data. So again, the analogy is same. Admins can set policies that detect if you are accessing SharePoint and OneDrive from devices which are not managed, we call, or trusted, and prevent access or prevent downloading to those managed contents. There is another use case for that, Ankita, which is, in many cases, we have large customers their employees use shared devices. So the same device is used by multiple people because probably they're working in shifts and whatnot. Generally, people download a document and then forget. And how often we delete documents these days? We don't, right? So they forget about the document, and then somebody who is sharing can still access the document. So these policies prevent such scenarios.
How do we integrate with Intune?
That's a very good question. So Intune actually gives the framework where it tells whether device is managed or not. And it provides even more granular control. Intune can say, in several cases, if it cannot manage your entire device, at least it will protect applications. For example, you can say that I have a file which is a highly confidential file. I don't want this file to be open from Word or PowerPoint that is not managed by Intune. So if Intune manages the app, then what you can do is on download, Intune can encrypt, Intune can do a remote wiping of your device, and you can, using Intune, you can enforce copying and pasting. So if you open the Word document in an Intune managed Microsoft Word, then you will not be able to copy and paste to a clipboard or some other applications. So this provides even tighter integration and security.
That's awesome.
And you spoke about the remote working, and currently there are organizations who are thinking about BYOD or bring your own device scenario. What are the ways to manage specific applications when the users are using different devices which are employee owned and we can't really manage those devices or deem them as trusted?
Exactly. So this is what I was alluding to earlier, where if you don't know that your employees, what kind of devices that they're bringing, at least on a service site, we can detect at access time if the incoming request is coming from a managed versus an unmanaged device, and then we can provide granular controls at a per site level in SharePoint or per OneDrive level as well. So you can say, oh, these sites are regular sites, doesn't have sensitive information, so users can access from their own device, versus sites like a highly confidential site, you can prevent access. So it is not like the entire SharePoint will be blocked when you access from your own device, but admins can choose and enforce the control on specific site that makes sense.
So while I was researching for the blog, I also came across a feature which we've not spoken about before with respect to OneDrive, which was and you can correct me if I'm wrong, which was the safe attachments feature, which is, I think, in ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, that automatically scans uploaded files and quarantines files if they are not found to be unsafe. And it's across Exchange also. It can do the same thing for the files that you're attaching in Exchange. And that made me realize that we released this amazing feature called request files, where you can send an upload only link to people across your organization or even outside, and just ask them to upload their data, upload their files, and you can gather all these important documents, remote colleagues, vendors, partners, anyone. Do you see the safe attachments feature helping us make sure that the request files feature can be implemented in a more secure environment?
You are absolutely right. So first of all, the request file feature has been a great hit in several cases where the requirement was that, hey, I want to capture these files from users, but I don't want to open up my SharePoint. I just need these few files from my people who I'm collaborating with, my vendors, etc. So this has been a very secure way to upload without opening up SharePoint, the entire site, or opening up an entire folder. And then while uploading, as you earlier mentioned, when you upload documents, then we do an automatic scan of the files for malware, and then immediately, because these are probably coming from outside my organization, so I don't trust these documents that are coming in. So the malware checking happens automatically, and then if there are some issues with the files, they are blocked from downloading by any users. Only admin will have permission to open or download those files.
Awesome. So all of these things that you've talked about, Sanjoyan, so far have been kind of great ways for, an administrator to be in control and to set up their organization, to have kind of the safest, most secure, capabilities. That gives you a range of how to make the defaults for everyone work well for enabling collaboration, but also on that especially more sensitive and critical content, deeper and greater control on protecting it. So I love all of that. I'm a big fan. I do want to know, though, like, if I'm an administrator, how am I monitoring all the kind of sharing and trends that are happening so I can evaluate if things are working well?
So the first thing that we would like to mention here is, from a reporting standpoint, is sharing reports. This is an end user feature where you can generate the sharing reports for OneDrive and know who you have shared with, when you have shared with, who has access, and things like that. So the easy way to go to sharing report is, if you go to your OneDrive, click on your gear icon, click on OneDrive settings. That will take you to the OneDrive setting page. Then you click on more settings and you will find the option called run sharing report.
Awesome, I found it.
Cool. And then when you click on run sharing report, sharing report takes a quick while to get generated. So you choose the location where the report will get generated. It is an Excel file, and that's all. The sharing report will get generated quickly. You can go and check who has access. And after sharing reports, from an admin standpoint, I would like to know what is happening to all the OneDrives out there and then who are sharing. So as an admin, Office 365 Admin Center, I can go to reports and generate and take a look at the OneDrive usage reports. That gives me the reports for 15, 30, 90, 180 days report. I can also go specific date range and see, hey, my usage of OneDrive or sharing went up, what's happening. I can also take a look at, it's pretty granular, and it can also give you information about how many downloads of files, how many files got uploaded in OneDrives, one or more across my organization.
Yeah, this part I would really want to stress on, because I've got so many questions at Ignite and other events about, can we see reports on each user's OneDrive, and can we understand the activity of every OneDrive user, and not just at an organization level? And the answer is yes, you can. You can see which file, who uploaded, downloaded, shared internally, externally, when did they last sync it, what modification did they do. You can see all of those data for each user, and it's pretty overwhelming, as I was telling Jason some time back. But apart from the usage and activity, which is very consistent to other Office 365 workloads as well, one more thing that I would want you to let our listeners know is about the DLP policies that you previously mentioned. Are there reporting available that can help me understand what are the trends regarding the policies that I've set for my organization?
Absolutely. What DLP provides is, of course, we spoke about the protection part. The DLP rule runs and then finds content and then protects them. Apart from that, DLP also reports back to the admin that in today's run, I found 1,000 documents which had sensitive information, and what is the action that the DLP has taken, which is like prevention of download or prevention of sharing and things like that. And it can show you trend over a period of time, how many hits, how many false positives. So you can get all those data from a DLP policy to understand whether the enforcement of the policies that you created as an admin is happening correctly or not.
And similar would be for sensitivity labels as well. I'm assuming there'll be reports regarding the labels that you've set and how the labels are performing as well.
Absolutely. And we have two new dashboards in Office 365 Admin Center, which is Content Explorer and Activity Explorer. So in Content Explorer, you can go and check what are the contents that are there across Office 365 workload, like in Exchange, in SharePoint, in OneDrive, in Teams, what kind of classifications that they have, what kind of labels that they have. And then in Activity Explorer, you can go and see what are the general life cycle of a document which is marked as highly sensitive in SharePoint and OneDrive, who is uploading, who is downloading, who is sharing, who is authoring, even to the granular level where they are removing the label. So we track in the Activity Explorer if you have upgraded a label or downgraded. Suppose there was a document which was marked as highly sensitive, a user came and changed the label to general. So we call that as a downgrade. So you can track as an admin if people are downgrading labels or upgrading. So pretty good.
Awesome. Before we let you go, I have one more question, which is regarding customer scenarios. I know you cannot mention the customer names, but you've worked so closely with so many customers while developing all these amazing features. So, is there a customer that you've worked with and you can let our listeners know about best practices? Or is there any background tidbit story that helped you develop some of these features? Just something from behind the scenes.
Yes, there are, a couple of cases which I can mention. One of the big customers, without naming the customer, a very, very large multinational consulting company. And what typically happens in a consulting company is that their employees goes to, their client's office, sit there with their client, solve their business problem. So basically, their employees are working in an environment which is different from their in-office environment, probably using networks that are that belong to their customers and devices that are providing by their customers and things like that. Now, these employees are also accessing, for example, architectural data or some other important data that belongs to the company itself. So they don't want their employees to take those data out and then use in networks that they don't trust or devices that they don't trust. So that was one of the inspirations when they came to us and say, hey, Microsoft, you are doing so much, but solve our business problem where I have the 100,000 employees who are basically consultants. So they are on move. And I want them to be productive. I want them to access my protected documents, but I want to have this insurance that they are not forgetting those content and leaving them back. And then I will lose an IP. In some cases, these documents are patent protected or pending patent, etc. So they don't want to lose these documents. That was one of the scenarios for which we came up with the IP address policy, and then we came up with the device access policy.
Interesting. This is great to know. Jason, do you have any other questions?
I just have our fun question that we ask every guest that comes on the show left for you, Sanjoyan.
Ooh, okay.
Are you two ready?
Yeah. And I got to know that we are going to answer 2 questions today.
That's right. Actually, we have 2 questions because, I thought it'd be fun to mix it up a little bit. The first question, and we'll start with you, Ankita, is it's spring here in the Pacific Northwest. And so when spring arrives, I always start thinking a lot about getting out and doing some awesome hikes. Now, there's obviously some real challenges with all of that. But I thought it might be good to kind of, have you take us each on your kind of like, what's your perfect hike? What's your perfect outdoor walk? And is there like a specific one you've done somewhere in the world that you just absolutely loved and want to share?
So right now, and I totally second you on the feeling of as soon as spring is here and summer is here, we start thinking about where to go for hikes. And right now, in this current situation, I think for the past few weeks, most of the parks have been closed. So that has been a challenge. But I discovered a park. It's a trail around Lake Washington here. It's in Mount Baker Beach. I mean, this is specifically for people in the Seattle area. And it's a beautiful trail which is all around Lake Washington, which I really liked. And I've just discovered it recently because these were some of the places where you could still go and you could park the car somewhere along the road and you can walk around. I really, really enjoyed the walk, and I've been there like twice or thrice in the past month.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. How about you, Sanjoyan?
I definitely like hiking, and then Seattle and this area has a lot of options. My personal favorite will be the mailbox pick. At least it has been a ritual now for me in the past 3 years to do it once every year with my friends. It is difficult. It's a difficult hike because the elevation is, in a short distance, the elevation goes really high, like a 2-mile elevation.
Right.
But we like the challenge. We come down, have fun. So I really like that hike. Yeah.
I'm impressed with that one. That's definitely a big one. Do you take a letter up for the mailbox?
No, I didn't take the letter up. But whenever I go there, and it's so funny because people keep things like food and stuff like that. And then last time we went, I found toilet paper. I I don't know why somebody left.
Yeah, you never know. Someone was trying to help someone else out. That's great. I'll say for myself, I love so many, and there's so many great hikes and kind of places to go visit and do all of those. One of the ones that I really enjoyed, and I forget the name of it specifically, but is from near Mount Baker, Mount Kulshan. There is a little lake with a great view there called Picture Lake, and you can essentially head up from there and get this awesome view in the Cascades there across the mountains. Just this really short, relatively short hike with truly, truly amazing views. And I find it a really neat way to introduce people to the Pacific Northwest and taking a beautiful hike here. Always really enjoy that. Okay, so that's our hike question. Here's the other one. And I want to close out with this one because I'm actually really, really interested in the answers. I need to know. A lot of us right now are working from home. And one of the big things with working from home is you no longer have whatever the snacks or drinks are in your office. You are providing your own. So what's your go-to snack that you're having right now, maybe eating at this very moment, that you would recommend? Why is that? Why do you love that snack? Sanjoyan, why don't you go first?
I'm trying to think. There are so many options, and I have been snacking all this while when I'm working from home. So A, chips, specifically Doritos, and B, my wife bakes some, coconut cookies, and I really love them. So we have a bunch stashed somewhere, and I kind of sneak and compete against my kids to grab them.
That's great. How about you, Ankita?
I'm not sure if I would recommend this, but I have been heavy on Eggos and Nutella.
Nice.
For the past 1.5 months.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of Eggos and Nutella.
I like Eggos.
I love them, and I love Nutella on them. And I mean, I prepare it in a way that there is Nutella left to even eat after the Eggo and Nutella. So it's concerning. There are a lot of Nutella bottles that are over, and I don't think my partner is very happy about it. But
well, you should be buying it in bulk. I mean, that's for sure.
He has.
Good.
He has. But
okay.
he does show his disappointment as well.
I'll say for my part, probably the one that I enjoy the most, but we don't always make it. We haven't done in a little while, is Lamingtons, which are an incredibly Australian treat, and they're just fantastic. Chocolate and coconut and kind of cake. It's just it's fantastic. And then probably more frequently is I will go to some sort of hummus, and I'm not very picky, but lots of different kinds of hummus, and then something great, either chips or some sort of flatbread to eat it with. So those are, the kind of the sweet and the savory, salty kind of variants of snacks I prefer, for sure.
I just looked up Lamington because I never had it before. So now
it's
on my list.
When we're back in the office, I'll make sure to bring some in. It'll be great.
Okay.
Well, that's all the time we have for you, Sanjoyan. And, just kind of as a parting thing, we'd love to share, where can people find and learn more about you? How can they reach out and connect with you?
I am always available in LinkedIn. So you can look me up in LinkedIn. And in Teams, if you have any questions, shoot me an email at sanjoyan.mustafi@microsoft.com. I try to answer as quickly as possible.
Awesome. Thank you again for being on Sync Up.
Thank you, Jason and Ankita.
Thank you so much for being here and for all the help with the blog as well. It was a big, big relief getting you on board and getting all your inputs. Thank you so much.
Cool. No, this was fun. I really enjoyed it. I never expected this to be this relaxed. I was always in little bit in Ignite mode. And
Next up, roadmap updates and important upcoming events. So don't go away.
It's time to share with the listeners the latest feature releases. As Sanjoyan already mentioned, we recently released sensitivity labels with protection for Office files in OneDrive and SharePoint. So do check out our general availability blog, and there's a lot of documentation around how to enable sensitivity labels for Office files in SharePoint and OneDrive. Apart from that, we launched a very cool feature which is known as version history in desktop. So now you will be able to view, restore, and delete previous versions of your files directly in the desktop via a file browser or a Mac Finder. Lastly, we previously have received feedback that folks who are working on different documents, if by chance they leave their documents open in another browser of another machine, or someone else that they've shared with have left it open intentionally or intentionally, it leads for the document to be effectively locked and the owner is not able to delete the document. So now we have released a new feature that will prompt you that the document is open somewhere, but will allow you as an owner to delete the document even if it is open in another browser by you or someone else. Oh, one last thing. The enterprise ring has been renamed to deferred ring. So just for background, we release updates to Sync app for Windows and Mac through rings of validation. And there are 3 rings here, which are the insiders ring, production ring, and deferred ring, which was previously known as enterprise ring. So just in case if you see it in your GPO interfaces or in release notes, be sure that it's the same thing, just with a updated name. Again, we encourage users to stay in the production ring, which is the default, and you can learn more about the Sync app update process on docs.microsoft.com.
You know, Ankita, it was great having Sanjoyan on the show. Our friends on the Intrazone podcast actually recently covered security in a previous episode from a SharePoint and data center perspective in a conversation with Matt Swan, who is kind of our security czar in the OneDrive and SharePoint team. That episode's called The Security and Compliance Blanket of Microsoft 365, and we'll put a link in the show notes. It's a great listen. Definitely, if you want to hear more about the end-to-end of how we think about doing great security for protecting users and their files in OneDrive and SharePoint, that's an excellent one to listen to. And of course, for more information on all the features that Ankita talked about in the roadmap, you can check out our blog at aka.ms/OneDrive/blog.
So, Jason, what do you have for us this month for our special topic?
Well, I thought it'd be great for us to take a moment and acknowledge some of the challenges of working from home for parents. It's not a new topic. We're certainly not the only people to talk about it, but I was spurred by something I heard the other day from someone who doesn't have any children. He said, "Isn't working from home easier for parents?" And he didn't mean that in any kind of bad way. He was asking a genuine question.
Are you serious? I mean, every time someone asks me, how is it going for you? I make sure I mention it's fine, it's tough, but it's nowhere compared to parents working from home, because all the stories that I listen to and how difficult it is for you to manage your schedule and your children's schedule and make sure homeschooling is happening and they're getting fed on time and everything else. I mean, it is difficult even for a person who's not a parent. Just listening to all the stories, I can completely see where you are coming from.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, when you're at home with the kids, you're at home with the kids. And the challenge this actually hides is that there's these new roles that parents, I think, are taking on right now. There's kind of being at work, but also everything from babysitting, teaching, cooking, feeding, and managing a bunch of new coworkers that, you maybe previously didn't have in your plans. And it varies, obviously, the age of kids, how many kids, the situation you have at home, the spaces you have at home. Do you have a space where you can work or the kids can work? And, how do you separate all those things? There's going to be a lot of different situations, but definitely it's not necessarily something I would call easier. And, you're just aware that you have this set of folks that you also have to deal with. It's just part of your day, as opposed to maybe when you're at work and the kids are off at school and there are different people doing some amount of that.
Yeah, right. And it means less separation between the various things you do. How are you guys managing? How do you make sure that you have a designated time for yourself, for the kids, for work and everything?
For us personally, we've been pretty fortunate between my wife and I kind of managing that and what age the kids are at, et cetera. But it's definitely different than we've been used to. And when I kind of think about it globally and we look at kind of the way different families are dealing with this, and different families are in very different situations, some of the commonalities, though, really pop out. Like, for example, it's actually much harder for women on average managing through these things. So when you think about, caretaking for your team, you might be thinking, hey, there's some extra challenges here for parents, but specifically, it's even harder for women as a general rule. And that's because of something called the motherhood penalty, which is kind of this notion that while men seen doing caregiving and in caregiving roles have others think of them as being better, of being wanting to support them, women caregiving in a visible way is actually seen as an issue. And there's a whole set of interesting research and a background to that. But essentially, it means that it's women tend to come across as seeming less capable and competent than others, which just makes it that much harder for them in that situation.
So it's a lose-lose. So what's the scenario here? It doesn't sound too positive.
That's just kind of the reality of it. You've got a plan for how you're going to deal with that. And a big part of it is just being aware. There is so much that kind of goes on that makes it difficult for women in particular, but for all of these caregivers to manage these new situations. And so once we become aware of those biases, when we become aware of those challenges, we then can spend our time kind of actively working to make sure our work environments are much better. And that's even more so now that so many of our work environments are all or partially virtual. It's everything from making sure that as a team or as individuals, we don't spend our energy questioning women's capabilities based on their caregiving. We don't, in leadership roles, we don't model behaviors that seem unfair or unhealthy. And one thing in particular I think that's great is seeing, and we're seeing this a lot at Microsoft right now, is, with the folks that have children at home and that are managing those different roles, modeling by being open about juggling those responsibilities. That kind of makes it safer for everyone to kind of acknowledge those challenges, because they're just real challenges. They exist and people have to work through them.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I've realized recently. Firstly, as you said, leadership roles, when they are on calls, I see their kids on the calls as well, and
right.
They are fine with it, and they are encouraging other people as well, because they understand that it can be a challenge. And secondly, the 12-week pay leave, if I realize, if I'm saying it correctly, for mothers or for caregivers or for fathers as well, whoever needs it during this time, it's so helpful. And I know of folks who've taken that time off because it's important for them to pay that much attention to their personal life and to their family as well. And it should be encouraged, I think, across the industry. I'm really proud Microsoft is doing this, although I don't need to take it right now. But for folks who really need to, it's a blessing.
Absolutely. And, I definitely would encourage companies to think about how they create these safe spaces and understand the challenges that their workforces are going through. But, they're really, the positive way to take it out is also that all of the behaviors that we've talked about on the show, that we've talked about in the industry, that people are thinking about creating more inclusive work environments, they're doubly important now, and they're even more valuable. And so thinking about these parents and this caregiving, and by the way, caregiving really is broader than just children.
Yeah.
Many of us have, broader families at home, whether they're either extended family or parents and grandparents. All of those require some amount of caregiving as well. All of the inclusive behaviors, all the work to make work environments better for everybody so they can do their best work, they apply just as much now, if not more so. And so it's just a great thing to keep in frame of mind. And I think it's one of those opportunities for all of us to practice and grow on that. And while things may be a bit challenging, it really is great as a focusing point for us to think intentionally about how we can just build those habits to be even better and making those work environments for everyone.
Yeah, and I was actually, whoever I've spoken to recently, and if they are parents, I've tried to understand how they are managing or what initiatives they are taking personally, and it's great to see that folks have tried to chalk out time with their spouse and have a mutual understanding. Like, I think one of the folks that I spoke to works from 1 to 8, 1 to 6 or 7, and the mornings she's dedicated to working or taking care of her children, and the afternoon I think her spouse is. And similarly, one of my colleagues has taken Thursdays off. Like every week he and his spouse take, I think, Wednesday or Thursday off just to recuperate and make sure everything is functioning well. But obviously all of this, it should be encouraged in an environment, and I love the fact that it is in Microsoft. It just makes people more comfortable, and as you said, create an inclusive environment to work even in these challenging times.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ankita.
Thank you to our guests, Sanjoyan and Mustafi. We encourage you to check out docs.microsoft to learn more about security with OneDrive, and tune in next month as well to learn about governance and compliance. To learn more about OneDrive and the latest developments, please follow our tech community blog at aka.ms/OneDrive/blog.
And please do send us your questions and feedback. You can reach us on Twitter at OneDrive, @Jasmo, and @Ankita_Kirti21. And definitely visit our show page for links, resources, and more at aka.ms/syncup. That's SYNCUP. Subscribe to and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. And tell your colleagues, dog walkers, cat sitters, grandparents, roommates, really anyone else that could learn about and find the show. We all know how important and impactful sharing can be. Ankita, now you go.
Oh, do I have something? Oh, sorry.
Put the margarita down.
I wish. Thank you for listening to Sync Up, a show about OneDrive, the intelligent files app for Microsoft 365. We are your hosts, Ankita Kirti and Jason Moore. We'll catch up with you next month.